Myers-Briggs personality test. Yes, it's old. It isn't psychometrically valid. It wasn't derived by factor analytic techniques. It should be replaced by the big five.
Hey everyone, the enneamentalist here, and today I'm gonna type Jordan Peterson in Hekatior. Link to Hekatior playlist will be in the description. First, let's start by introducing our special guest. Quoting Wikipedia, Jordan Peterson is a Canadian psychologist, author, and media commentator. He began to receive widespread attention in the late 2010s for his views on cultural and political issues. Before even proceeding typing Peterson, is there anything worth mentioning? Some kind of condition or similar that could affect his processing? Well, Jordan Peterson mentioned publicly of struggling for years with severe depression as well as substance addiction, benzodiazepine, clonazepam, Xanax. In his video Return to Home, Jordan Peterson shared his struggle with substance abuse. He was able to overcome his addiction with the help of Mihaela, his daughter, and other family members. Jordan Peterson hopes to continue sharing valuable content on YouTube for his viewers and to continue his recovery from his substance addiction. Now, having premised that, I can move to type Peterson himself. The first thing to do at this point is to check his brain type.
So one of the things we found, which was really mind-boggling to me, was that you could make a case that the probability that a company will use a test that predicts performance, the probability that they will use the test is inversely related to the accuracy of the test, which basically means that the less accurate tests are easier to sell. And you think, well, why the hell would that be? How in the world would it possibly be that corporations would rather buy tests that don't work than tests that do work? And that is what they do, because really what they do buy is the Myers-Briggs, right? That sells about 1 million units a year. And the Myers-Briggs has zero predictive utility with regards to performance prediction.
His brain type is ORH. Now let's move to his preferential attitude. Peterson analyzed himself on the Big Five scale. Here I'm gonna pull a clip of Peterson talking about his Big Five results and pay particular attention to the part where he talks about his score in the extroversion area.
I'm pretty enthusiastic. I think it's 75th, 80th percentile, something like that. 99th percentile for assertiveness. So I'm pretty extroverted because those two together make extroversion. And then with neuroticism, that's a hard one because I've had this problem with chronic depression that looks like it's autoimmune related. And so I've felt a lot more negative emotion than the typical person does, I would say, by a substantial margin. Withdrawal, well, I don't seem to shy away from things. So, apart from the fact that I do feel anticipatory anxiety, which I think is secondary to this depression, let's say, I don't seem to shy away from things. So I don't think that temperamentally I'm particularly high in withdrawal. I am more, it's not irritable. What's the next one? Volatile. I'm higher in volatility than withdrawal by a substantial margin. I can be quite irritable, but again, it's hard to dissociate that from the depression. So anyways, my levels of negative emotion are higher than I would prefer. Agreeableness, I'm pretty compassionate, pretty high in compassion. It's like 75, 80th percentile. So, but I'm relatively low in politeness. So I think, but not 5th percentile, something like 30th percentile, 40th percentile, if I remember correctly. So that means that it means that I'm blunt enough to hurt people's feelings now and then, and that I really don't like that because the compassion thing gets me. So conscientiousness, I'm moderately orderly, 75th percentile, and like 99th percentile for industriousness. And then openness, both of them, intellect and 99th percentile for intellect, and then it's like 95th, something like that, for openness or higher. So that's where I rank.
He clearly prefers the objective attitude. Now we go to the trickiest part when it comes to typing Peterson, his primary function. What's pretty obvious should lead in SOGT, meaning either a thinking or feeling lead, and of course the neurotic version of that type. Let's quickly recap the characteristic of a neurotic extroverted feeling type versus a neurotic extroverted thinking type. In the neurotic extroverted feeling type, you will see that, quoting Jung, so as long as the personality is not swallowed up in successive states of feeling, this unconscious thinking remains compensatory. As soon as the personality is dissociated, dissolves into succession of contradictory feeling state, the identity of the ego is lost and the subject lapses into the unconscious. When this happens, it gets associated with the conscious thinking processes and occasionally helps them to the surface. The stronger the conscious feeling is and the more ego-less it becomes, the stronger grows the unconscious opposition. The unconscious thoughts gravitate around just the most valued objects and mercilessly strip them of their value. Nothing but type of thinking.
I said it begins and ends with me right now, not forever.
Unconscious thinking reaches the surface in the form of obsessive ideas, which are invariably of a negative and depreciatory character, and moments when the most odious thoughts fasten on the very objects most valued by their feelings. Negative thinking utilizes every infantile prejudice or comparison for the deliberate purpose of casting aspersions on the feeling value, and masters every primitive instinct in the attempt to come out with nothing but interpretations. Hysteria, with the characteristic infantile sexuality of its unconscious world of ideas, is the principal form of neurosis in this type. As mentioned previously, an example of neurotic extroverted feeling type in SOGT, Talk with Famous People, Eric Strauss.
You are ignoring my point, sir. That's the problem. Not that I'm yelling. That is factually fucking false.
Acting like a child?
That is factually fucking false.
Whereas, looking at an extroverted thinking type neurotic, the extroverted thinking type usually doesn't leave a fuzzy on just formula causing a neurosis. There are exceptional people who are able to sacrifice their entire life to a particular formula. The potentialities repressed by the intellectual attitude will make themselves indirectly felt by disturbing the conscious conduct of life, and when the disturbance reaches a definite pitch, then we speak of a neurosis. Personally, if you ask me what I lean slightly more for Peterson, I think more of SOGT thinking lead, neurotic, ET, extroverted thinking for Jordan Peterson.
So why do people use it? Oh, here's one reason. It doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody wins, right? And so then you think, well, do corporations really care whether or not everybody wins when they're being tested? And the answer to that is yes, much more often than you would think. So we hit all sorts of barriers. That was one. The problem with tests that work is that most of the people who take them don't do very well on them. And then the other problem is that people aren't good at statistical reasoning at all. They're really, really bad at it. And so, for example, they don't know the difference between a percentage and a percentile.
And the intellectual formula that tries to impose on others is how to be a social one. In the Enneagram, Peterson is a social one. Also, to further suggest more thinking lead than feeling lead, if you listen deep throat to his lectures, there is an underlying task focus with points like make your own bed and so on.
You know, I mean, I said in one of the chapters in my books is is focused on putting your house in order. It's like, well, how do you start? Make your bed. You know, it actually took me quite a long time in my life before I made my bed regularly in the morning. Most of my life was in pretty good order, but that was one thing I didn't have in order. My clothes in my closet as well, all that's in order. Not all of it. I'm cleaning out some drawers right now, but look around and see what bugs you in your room.
As for his auxiliary, I would say that Peterson has a slightly differentiated intuition. So overall, the estimated Hekatior typing for Jordan Peterson will be ORH, ETN, neurotic, ET. That will be Jordan Peterson type in Hekatior, based on the data available on him. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the video and you find it informative. Stay tuned.